It's working. It is working. And there are suggestions in the chat for those that are having audio issues.
Hello, everyone. And on the very first day of everyone's having lots of fun. So I'm Laura. I'm here to introduce you to a really exciting keynote speaker today, Carolina Cruz-Neira.
Hello.
Ager Chair in Computer Science at the University of Central Florida. She's member of the National Academy of Engineering. She's a pioneer in the areas of virtual reality, interactive, and visualization. Created and deployed a number of technologies that are now considered standard tools in the industry, in government, and in academia. Known for creating the CAVE virtual reality system, her research to spearhead several source and entrepreneurial VR initiatives. She has been 100 publications, been awarded over $75 million in grant. She's and led numerous VR research centers, including the Virtual Reality Application Center at Iowa State University, the Louisiana Immersive Tech Enterprise, Emerging Analytics Center at Little Rock. Been named one of the top innovators in VR. She's also been named one of the top 3 greatest women visionaries in VR. And she's been named a rising research star by Business Week magazine. Her many awards include IEEE Virtual Reality Technical Achievement Award and the Distinguished Career Award from International Digital Media and Arts. The numerous keynote addresses, so this is not a new thing for her. She's also given advisory guests to numerous national and international press, and today for us, she's going to be presenting her paper titled VR as a Force of Change in Education. She'll discuss the proliferation of VR applications, new future in education. So without further ado, let's welcome virtually Dr. Carolina Cruz-Neira.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here this afternoon. I hope we can make this work well without any hitches. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my perspective on virtual reality and how we can use it as a change of as a force of changing in education. And I would like to have a little bit of a dialogue, if we can, at the end. So please, as I go along, feel free to put some questions. Okay, you cannot hear me? Can I be heard? Nobody's answering me. I'm getting nervous. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead then. I think if I unmute myself in Marbella, I might do a lot of echo. I mean, I can try to do that. Is that better? Do I echo through Marbella or through Zoom? I'm okay. Is that okay for everybody? Okay, here we go then. So as for those of you that didn't hear me before, I'm delighted to be here this afternoon, and we're gonna go a little bit on a journey with me through my many years of experience since my early days doing VR to where I am today. And as I talk and you have some questions, please put them in the different mechanisms that we have, like the different chat lines and so on. And hopefully at the end, we can have a little bit of a conversation. So for me, let's see, we can go here. So I started around 1991 when I was a very young PhD student. And actually at the time I was not even a PhD student yet. I was trying to decide whether to do a PhD or not. And I went to an exhibit called Tomorrow's Realities in the conference SIGGRAPH 91. And that was my first exposure to virtual reality. And probably it happens still today when you get your first experience, you know, you get really like, oh my gosh, what is this thing? Wow, this is super, super cool. This is awesome. Oh, I never seen anything like this. I never experienced anything like this. So I was really, really blown away from the first experiences that I had. But since I was trying to decide whether or not to go to an industry type of career or a research type of career, then I started questioning, you know, what I just experienced. So on my second reaction to the technology was like, wait a minute, I am here in this amazing world that is all created by imagination and computers, but I'm here all by myself. I really want my friends, my colleagues, my family, basically I want everybody in the world to join me in this virtual reality, this virtual space. So, but then I started realizing that at that time, everything was very headset oriented. So as I was going back over and over and over to try the different exhibits, you know, I started to realize that, you know, even though, let's say, my mind was in the virtual space, my body was still in the real world. And those two didn't quite integrated to me, because even though I wanted to be fully engaged in the virtual space, I was still on the back of my mind, very aware that my body was somewhere else, and that somewhere else had furniture, other people, cables. So I was somewhat inhibited to move in that virtual reality. I also was trying to figure out, you know, what is the point of this technology, because most of the things that they were on that particular exhibit were very gaming oriented and very entertaining orienting, which is fun and is wonderful and is a big market, especially today. But I wanted to see if this was had other applications or other ways that it could impact human life. So after I became a pest, basically for everybody in that show, because like I said, I kept coming back over and over and over to try things, you know, I decided that I was gonna go into the world of research, but I also wanted to figure out how I could make this technology in a way that would be more social and perhaps more human, that was much more than an entertainment technology. And that is then what started making me think, okay, what is really VR? Because there's all this terminology, VR, AR, XR, this, that. There is all these many things. So I started to realize that there was a lot of people that were identifying the word VR with something that would be entirely worlds that were entirely living in the computer. So something that was entirely digital. And then there was a community of people that will identify the word AR with worlds that are used to enhance our reality. And there were all the others, something R in the middle of all these definitions. So for me, in my head, you know, what I think about these things really is all the same thing to me, because it's some sort of digital reality that is going to serve, it's going to support whatever context, whatever specific situation we have, and whatever expectations we have about whatever we want to do in that world. So for me, you know, when I say VR, and I'm going to say VR through the rest of my talk, I don't mean VR in the strict definition of a fully immersive digital world. I mean some kind of world that we use digital technology in some form to provide a unique experience to the different participants and users. We might have situations where we need those users to be fully isolated from reality and fully embedded in the digital reality, but we might have situations where our users are going to be very grounded in reality, but that reality is going to be augmented or embellished or expanded through some digital, in a sense, overlay. So to me, it's all using these technologies for the final experience that we want to provide. That also takes me to another point, and this is Carolina's slide that goes in every single presentation that I have given in the last 20 something years. You know, I want to make something very, very clear. When we talk about VR, AR, XR, something R, we all immediately think something that goes in front of your eyes, some kind of headset, some kind of goggles, something like that. To me, this is a very narrow view of the technology and also the capabilities what this technology can do. So please, same thing, forget it. When we talk about this, we don't talk about headsets. Headsets is just a current technology, a 2020 technology. It's kind of like in the Middle Ages, everybody used horses and carts for transportation, but today we use many other ways of transportation. So in my opinion, you know, right now we are in the horses and cart stage of the VR and AR history. So I really want everybody out there today to have a much more open mind that when we talk about AR and VR and XR, and again, any Rs, we are talking about technology that take us there. And that there could be some fantastic island where we are going to relax. It's going to take us to a virtual classroom where we are going to learn a lot. It's going to take us to a wonderful trip through the Himalayan mountains. Or it's gonna take us to downtown London with just some enhancements so we can actually find the address that we're trying to find. But it doesn't have to be just the narrow perspective of a headset. And this has become, in a sense, my guide principle for the rest of my career. I've been always had a very open mind on what kinds of technologies we can use to take us there that we all want to go when we go to VR. So as most of you probably know, when I was very young and after my experience in the Tomorrow's Realities exhibit, that exhibit, just to give everybody time frames, that exhibit was late July of 1991. And by December of 1991, I had the first functional prototype of what is known today as the cave. And as you can see in this video, I created a room, a physical space where we can all go physically together, and then we together enjoy the virtual space. And as you can see, if we are very naturally, if we are in a conversation, if we are experience something that we enjoy, we can very quickly invite somebody else to join us into that virtual reality. And it gives us a good balance of our normal everyday way of interacting as humans, our body languages, our facial expressions, our normal actions that you see here, using our fingers to point while we're looking at the face of somebody to make sure that we are all paying attention. But then we get all the power of being enveloped in a virtual space. So this was the beginning of my career. And I was tremendously fortunate to be able to do something like this, because it was almost like the floodgates just opened. Because after I did the cave, you can see in one of the pictures there, that was when the cave was shown in SIGGRAPH 92, exactly a year after I saw Tomorrow's Realities. And you can see there was people sitting in line for hours and hours and hours to come and see it. But what's really very exciting is that I think it broke a little bit the tunnel vision that the field had at that time, very focused on headsets. And after I did the cave, there was a lot of branches, let's say, that came out of that, where people developed things like the immerse desks, the SGI reality centers, the power walls, the workbenches, and many sort of group team technologies to give us different levels of immersion, different levels of reality that had perhaps a practicality to them that it had not been to some extent considered until the time that the cave came out. Then we all went through like what I call the dark ages of VR, where somewhere between 2000, 2001 and 2012, VR seemed like it vanished. But as you can see in a lot of these images that I'm put you in there, these are perhaps the most fertile years of the use of VR in industry. And there's a common trait to all these images, which are most of them were cave enabled. Industry really embraced the concept of teamwork in a virtual space. And the cave provided that sort of simple way to get in and out of the space and bring with you other people into the space. So a lot of the automobile companies, a lot of the oil and gas companies, many design firms, different types of manufacturing companies, of course, many research centers were using it. So VR was never really dead or stopped. It just was not consumer. It was just something that became a competitive tool and therefore very confidential. So many companies will not even discuss that they were doing VR internally. Now we all know that in 2012, Palmer luckily put the Oculus out there for all of us to enjoy. And since then, I think it's very difficult that a day goes by that we don't have some sort of VR or AR or XR in the front cover of any magazine or news media out there. It has become really popular, primarily because now it's amazingly affordable, amazingly easy, and amazingly robust to use. It has become, as we all know, a very consumer platform and very easy to afford. And a teenager kid can cut the grass during the summer, and he or she can have a beautiful VR setup at home at the end of the summer. But when we look at the landscape today, as I mentioned, there is VR in every magazine that you open or in every media outlet that you look into. This is what you see. There is a wide range of technologies, most of them headset based, that you see. So when we look at this technology and we think what might be coming up next, we might see this picture. But as you can see, it's pretty much more of the same. But really, some of you that perhaps are a little older might realize that these are not upcoming products. These are actually the past. So we're looking 30 years into the past. And if you look at what we see through media, it hasn't really evolved other than it has become cheaper. I mean, obviously better resolution and, it has become, let's say, more usable and more consumer, but what is the real work? What is the real progress? What is the real innovation that happened in that between those late 90s and 2012? The media is still having us thinking this is VR. And this is a part of VR, but this is not the whole picture of VR. And this is something that, again, for me, limits tremendously the imagination of the younger generations, because we are coming into this field with a predisposed way of thinking about the technology. And is my little crusade is to try to change the minds of all of you out there that, of course, these are wonderful tools. They are very affordable. They are very easy to use. And, let's all use them. Of course, we want to use them, but let's don't lose sight that this is not it. There's a lot more out there. There's a much bigger world out there. Now, when we look at all these from the perspective of education, then I feel when I talk to a lot of educators that it looks like there is a tremendous amount of VR work that has been done in the last 20, 30 years that either is being ignored or is just plain and simple unknown. I mean, sometimes I talk to people and I cannot tell you how many people all over the world says, oh, really? That has been done already? There was people have been working on that for such a long time. And it's like, yes, they have. This is not a novel idea. Now, it is more a realizable idea today than it was 20 years ago, of course, and we should do it because we couldn't do it before, but it's not a new idea, it's not an innovation, it's a progression of where we were many years ago. So I don't think the market is really paying attention to the true needs in education. Of course, some of these things now we are all rethinking this because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but let's be positive and let's assume that we're all going to be on the other side of COVID-19 and we are going to continue evolving this technology. So one thing that I am very sort of passionate about, we have to be very aware that at this moment today, 2020, headset technology does not really address seriously the need of social interaction and teamwork that is needed to learn. And we are all in Virbela, joining each other and enjoying this presentation, and it's an excellent environment, but it does lack a little bit of that face-to-face, get all our hands in the same bucket at the same time that sometimes is needed in education. Another issue is something that can be done in a simple way to get in and to get out, not kind of like get suited, like we're going scuba diving. Another thing that is a biggie for me is how do we control the focus and attention of attention during a learning experience? How do I know at this moment, right now, as I'm talking to you, how do I know that all of you are actually looking at my slide instead of looking around in the virtual space and we're looking at the main stage, and maybe some of you might even take a stroll down to the virtual square outside of the stage and all that. I have no real way to see very well that you guys are paying attention to what I'm trying to present to you today. There is some other more logistical issues, for example, cost of operation and maintaining the equipment. I've been doing this for 29 years now, and most of my work has been always been deployed in a functional environment, and cost of operation and maintenance is a big issue when you want to put something mainstream. So for example, imagine the scenario of a 4th, 5th grade teacher, and is trying to get her 15 to 20 students in the classroom, initialize the same application, one student at a time, making sure that first of all the students are on the application that she's asking them to launch, that all the students are on the area of the application that they are supposed to be for today's lessons, that they can pay attention where they have to be. Now, how does she know that all the headsets are running, all the computers have the right version of the software, and many other details? You know, in the middle of the class, a student sneezes and the headset goes to the floor and breaks, and now what's happened? So those are issues that to me are is something that I think a wide range of commercial products are not paying attention to. If we go into K-12 education, another area that is very controversial in my world is what is the age range and the long-term exposure consequences of VR. You know, there might not be any, but there might, but we don't know because there has not been enough research to help us categorically say, you know, it doesn't matter, there is no problem at all, or to say, well, there are some issues, so here are the guidelines on how you use VR. We are still there, we're still trying to do that research, but it's not at a point that is categorically say a yes or a no, or a yes with these conditions or a no with these conditions. So that's another area that we need to do a lot more work. And then finally, another big area is the content development. How do we put the content development power on the people to create the content? So we all do PowerPoint, but for me right now with the pandemic, I have a 10-year-old in the house, and I actually have learned how powerful the online classrooms tools are. For example, something like Google Classroom, you know, it has enabled my child to finish his school year and complete his education with a tremendous amount of tools that the teachers themselves have been able to put together. We are not at that point either with virtual reality. We don't have tools that enable teachers to use the entire power that this technology opens up for them. So all this takes us to look a little bit into the future. So these are pictures today that when you talk about VR in education, this is what the vision that people seem to have about VR in education. To me, this future is a little bit scary because it goes against what I believe makes us learn, which is our interaction. We discover through interaction, through teams, through hands-on, in many cases, even through movement. So that vision doesn't really incorporate these kind of learning spaces very well. What we have today is the draft, I guess, of that. So these are the kinds of things that we use today to learn, but they are still very far. If I back up again, from here to here, we're not quite there. I have no doubt in my mind that we will get there. We are just not there. And because we are not there yet, I'm starting to notice some frustration and some, how you say in English, disenchantment with the technology in certain circles, because I think the expectations are a little bit or a lot higher than the reality of where we are right now with the technology. So we have to be a little aware of that, especially all of us in education, that we don't get overexcited on what we are doing today. We are setting the groundwork, we are setting the base of what it will be a few years down the line, but we're not quite ready to replace. Again, let me go back. We cannot yet get to the point where this is replaced by this at this moment. So just a word of caution in there. Another aspect to me, when you look at children, you see the picture on the left. This is to my point earlier. How do we control what the students are paying attention to? So you have a classroom here, a bunch of kids with Google Cardboards, and as you can see, typical kids, each kid is doing who knows what. So now the teacher has an exponential challenge on keeping them paying attention to what they are supposed to be attention, because she doesn't really see what they are seeing. So because one of them might have started the app looking backwards from the teacher. So he or she, that kid, might be looking at what the teacher wants him or she to see, but physically is turned around. So the teacher has really no frame of reference to know what they are doing. On the right, this is some other environment where you can see the kids are all focused, and it's very easy to know where they are looking at and what they are doing. Again, disclaimer, obviously with COVID-19 today, we have to also continue evolving our perspective on these issues, because we might have to be a little more aggressive on how we think about individual access to virtual environments, so we can keep our social distancing, but not eliminate our social interactions. So when we talk in education on these environments, there are still some issues that I feel they're being overlooked. So for example, many of the technologies are not really targeted for children. I have given demos of my lab to probably tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands of people in the last 28 years. And it's very, very repetitive to see children do what you see in these pictures when you put them on a headset. So they either start immediately looking up, so gravity helps to keep the headset on their heads, or they use their hands to hold it because their heads are very little. So the headset doesn't have any place to really sit on their faces. So this is a big issue because they are not designed for little heads today. And as we want to get to that vision of using VR, whether it's in the classroom as well as at home or any other location, then they have to be children specific technologies, just because, you know, anatomically they are just overall smaller than adults. Another issue that is overlooked is age restrictions for the use of this technology. The industry has chosen quasi-randomly 12 to 13 years old as the minimal age to use a headset. It's a good guideline, but it's not based in scientific research. So there is nothing that I'm aware of that has categorically said the brain is properly developed at 12 years old, so you can, without any concern, put a headset on this person, or the other way around. You know, this technology really doesn't have any impact on a developing brain, so there is really no issues whatsoever. So we don't know. So again, we have to be aware of this because, you know, we are all, our brain is constantly changing and evolving, but in these little ages, it changes a lot faster than we are a little older. Sometimes also we don't know what might be other conditions that are limiting the use of these technologies. As an example, I'm right now in a partnership with a group of medical professionals, and we've been trying to do a project on using VR to help pregnant women, as you see in the picture, and you have no idea how incredibly difficult it's been for us to get the approval to use pregnant women as test subjects in VR. There are very severe limitations that I was not aware of. So, but there are other groups that are freely using this technology. Again, it might be wonderful. I'm not saying that it's a wrong thing to do. It's just as a scientist, if I don't have information, I get a little bit more conservative on taking an action when I don't have any data to take an action. Same thing with elderly people. The picture on the left is that's my mom when we were in South Korea doing some demonstrations. So she loves to see what we do, but it's very noticeable in her case that she spends more than 10 minutes or after 10 to 15 minutes in looking at something, then she does have some issues in a sense when she returns to reality. Her mobility takes a little bit to readjust to the virtual space. It has proven very, very valuable as a technology to help in many kinds of pain control and many aspects of pediatric medicine and many aspects of psychiatric medicine. So there are many excellent potential applications to help our lives to be better, but we just have to make sure that we don't overlook the environment and the context where the technology is being put to work. Now, very quickly, you know, with all that background, you know, my work in the last few years has been, first of all, understanding very well where these technologies, the context in where these technologies can be helpful and how they can be helpful. We've been working very hard on bringing social interaction and teamwork into the environment of VR and AR. And on the overall, we've been really focused on finding ways where this technology or integration of technologies can support learning and discovery, anywhere from K-12 learning, college level learning, as well as scientists to help them on the research and understand their problem domains better, training, military training, industry training. So a huge range of learning and discovery applications. My one piece of work that we've been doing, for example, you know, my 28 years of experience have been sort of summarized in this new system that we call it for now the VDEN, which is basically a cave, but we simplified a lot. The underlying technology of a cave is very complicated. It's usually a cluster of machines that requires people to have a good understanding of distributed computing and parallel computing and so on. So now we have eliminated the cluster. So we have a single machine that operates the entire system. Another aspect is a regular cave occupies a tremendous amount of footprint space. So right now we have condensed that to about 8 by 8 feet of usable space with about a 10 feet by 11 feet of total footprint. We made it very affordable because if we want to use these technologies for education, obviously it has to be affordable to a school. So middle school and elementary school, even a high school, are not going to be able to afford, a multi-million-dollar system, and much less to afford the several hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that it takes to operate and maintain a full-blown cave. So this particular system is very affordable. It doesn't require any more maintenance than your conference room projector or something like that. And it's very portable. One of our concepts for this was, let's say a school has one of these systems, and maybe the library of the school keeps the system. So a third grade teacher says, well, tomorrow I'm going to do my physics lessons in the VDEN. So she can come very early in the morning and check it out of the library. And in about an hour or so, she can set it up somewhere, give her lesson, and then in another 45 minutes or so, pack it up and take it back to the library. So this afternoon or tomorrow, another teacher can take it. So it's a very simple kind of think about camping tent type of approach to set it up. So, and it can be transportable. So if you are doing some kind of educational event that has to go on the road, it can go with you. So here's a little bit of a video. Let's see if that goes over Zoom. So this is some of our test subjects. This is my son's third grade classroom that I do appreciate the Holy Souls, Our Lady of the Holy Souls School in Little Rock, Arkansas. They have been fantastic every time we wanted to have some kids to do some just informal observation, not a rigorous research at this moment, and all the parents have been fantastic lending us their kids to come and have a mini party in the space. So as you can see in the video, let me play it again, all the kids are paying attention, but we know that they're paying attention because we can see them, and they maintain their normal social interactions. You can see they're holding on to each other, they're pointing fingers, they're telling each other, do this, do that. So the social interaction is in there. So other, we have some mistake. I'm not going to talk about that. So basically my work right now is, I want to be very clear. I'm not a cave bias person. My lab has every technology available right now, from Google Cardboards, Oculus Vives, BIOS, HoloLenses, Magic Leaps, everything you can think about, to caves and some other things. So in the variety of systems, most of my work right now is what I call context-driven collaborative environments, which is basically if we have a group of people that they have to accomplish a task together, they might have different roles on that task, whether it's a learning task, whether it's a problem-solving task. So my research focuses on who needs what as far as VR technology. So here is a military example. The picture in the middle would be your soldier on the battlefield. So he or she can use a fully immersed setting that works very well. They have a headset. We have a treadmill because their physical exertion, how tired or non-tired they are, is going to affect their mental ability to make decisions during the training session. So that is a very good setup for them. You look on the left, you have, for example, the commanders on the battlefield. So they have to be very light on the kind of gear that they take and very movable. So something like a more of an augmented reality table, as you can see in there, avatar style, where through tablets or Google Cardboards or something, they can see a three-dimensional recreation of what's happening on the battlefield, so they can communicate. Of course, this is all interconnected with networks, so they can communicate with the grounds or the troops on the ground. If you look at the lower right, this is an immersive table that we have. So this, for example, is a good setting for pilots and drone pilots because they have a bird's eye view of the space, so they can maneuver multiple vehicles or I guess aircrafts at the same time, and having a good understanding of where everything is. And then the top right, which is a cave, you know, that could be for the very, very high level commanders, where they need to have a complete, really understanding of everything that is happening at the moment in the battlefield, from the ground troops to the commanders, to the drones, to the friendly people, the enemy people, and understand really the changes that might be happening, that might be changes that might not really affect directly the moment, that might have coming into play into the future. So it's the same virtual space, it's the same dynamics in the virtual space, but everybody has a different platform based on the role that they play. So this is a picture of my former lab at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, which I left this past December. And I'm now at the University of Central Florida, where we are building a similarly diverse laboratory, where we really have the whole spectrums of VR technology. These are very quickly different examples where you can see there are different platforms. So this is a platform to train welders. So the VR is coming very simple, a 3D computer monitor put flat on a table. This works fantastic, is very cost effective on using this kind of technology. Very easy to maintain, very easy to replace, and it works very, very well. Here is an example of using Google Cardboards and tablets in an operation of trying to learn. This is for professional training, so for mechanics, so to train them on different types of machinery and the steps to assemble and disassemble that machinery. This is another example for civil engineers on prepare them during their college education on how to do field trips and how to, for example, go out there and put all kinds of different sensors and understand the terrain properties, the weather properties, so they actually know how to set up those sensors and how to collect the data of the sensors, and basically the field trip training that right now most schools are unable to give to civil engineers. It's a teamwork because usually it's more than one of the engineers that go out there. So these platforms work really well. Here is an example of an anatomical dissection tool for this is targeting medical school residents. So it's both as a entry-level anatomy as well as a refresher anatomy. So you can see the dissection is happening. It's teamed, so an expert anatomist can guide the lesson. This was done a while ago, so you can see the tracker that we were using on those days. But it gives you an idea that is again, very different kind of platforms. This is using the VDEN for a company that manufactures conveyor systems for large warehouses. It's a company called Hydro in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So this is an example of one of the engineers in Hydro guiding a customer to see some of the new products that they are in the process of developing, and how perhaps this product can fit in the warehouse and package distribution that this customer might have. These are 3 different kinds of treadmills that we have to get you tired in the virtual space. Because again, when you are learning, depending on what you're learning, sometimes how tired or non-tired is gonna impact your learning. So like on the top left, this is practicing evacuation procedures in an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. Down below is a soldier patrolling some area, and the top one is a is a field trip kid, but she's trying to get herself out of a very complicated virtual maze in there. So to wrap up very quickly, some of my lessons learned over the years. is obviously knowledge is needed for innovation. So for all of you out there that are starting in this field, please do your homework. We've been around for more than 35 to 40 years. So this is not a technology that started in 2012. This is a technology that started in the mid 60s. So there is a tremendous body of work in this area that has many successes and many failures, and many good ideas that might not have not been able to realize because of the technology on those days. So please spend some time looking at all the work that has been done over the years. Understand really well what your options are for what you want to do. Don't let what you have on your hands force you to bend your progress to your problem to whatever it is you have. Just figure out what you need to do, and then let's see what technology will help. And of course, learn from people like me, that we have many successes, but also, believe me, many failures as well. I tell all my students and many of my collaborators, one size does not fit all in VR, okay? So there are many flavors, many levels of immersion, many ways for interactions, one-on-one systems, group systems. There is a wide range of options out there. So understand very well what those are and where they fit. Remember that we are humans, and part of what makes us humans is the social interaction. So as you go into your daily life inside VR as a developer, as a user, as an artist, as an educator, keep in mind that you should keep the social interaction in your VR space. There are situations where it might not be critical, but there are many situations where that social interaction is really needed. So just be aware of that. And related to that, of course, we need to also keep in mind, how do we support, especially in education, how do we support that focus of attention and that sort of leader control on where to direct the learning experience, the discovery, the moment of, I understand it now. Oh, that's what you meant. So how do we support that through VR? Of course, throughout my career, there is a lot of things that I have done one of a kind, one custom solution. But the problem with that is a lot of work. It's a very expensive, and most cases it's almost at their end, because you do it, and we all know with technology, you do it and it runs, but then 6 months from now, a year from now, it becomes outdated very quickly. And then what? Because none of us might be in a position to provide dedicated support and update to all these one-of-a-kind solutions. So we really need to figure out as a community, what are all those our standards, our guidelines, our frameworks to work, and how we unify all that so real progress and innovation can happen. And finally, I think, don't forget the business side of, not your business side, the business side of your users. So how do they have to operate? How do they have to maintain? What are the costs that they are going to have once you deliver something and you walk away? How all this is going to fit in their day-to-day workflow. So these are not little details. These are pretty massive details, because that's where the frustration comes from. And in my personal opinion, this is why VR, in a sense, not failed, but sort of did not took off as it should back in the 90s, because a lot of these issues were not really being paid attention to. Some final random thoughts, something that I see today, and I think is very dangerous. We are rushing products to market too soon. Any mailing list that we are in, any newsletters that we see, almost on a daily basis, there are product releases in VR. And most of them are not fully developed. And now we all have become very smart, because now we are developing, we are deploying products into the market, and we label them developer edition. But what happens with the developer edition? The end user is using the developer edition. So we are not quite there yet, but we're putting these things in the market. And again, some of them are mature enough to be already out there and be utilized, but there are many that are far, far from being a mature technology and a mature tool. But we are all really going for that quick. I'm going to do my company, and a year from now, I'm going to go IPO and I'm going to be a millionaire. And we jump a lot of steps before we really realize that our product might not make it there. And we see it. It's not a secret. We see how many companies come up and down in this market. I mean, I can guarantee you that about more than 60 to 75% of the companies that launched last year are not aware, are not alive today. So we have to also be careful with that. I'm always very against forcing the problem to the platform that we have in our hands, because we really want the problem guiding the platform design and selection. So, and this is a really big thing with me in my entire career. We figure out the problem, we figure out what is needed, and then we determine the platform. And it might be a headset, it might be a cave, or it might be something that we don't have, and then we have to actually build that particular piece of hardware for that particular project. Now, today we're trying to stay away as much as possible from developing hardware because there is more and more variety, but it's the problem that determines the tool. It's not the tool that is sort of forced into the problem, okay? Biggie, I am not a typical user, and neither are you, because you are the developer, you are the designer. So understand your user and what your user has to do every day, okay? Another biggie, just because I know Unity, Unreal, or some other platform does not make me a VR developer. There is a tremendous amount of knowledge, a tremendous process of professional maturity that we all have to truly understand what it takes to develop an effective VR applications. So a teenager can toy around with Unity and slap something together and call it VR. But to work, to really work, you have to be a professional. Like there are mechanical engineers to build cars, and there are, you know, aerospace engineers to build spaceships. You have to be a VR engineer to develop a VR application that actually works. We need to set our expectations to match the deliverable, because that's another biggie. We put our customers, our educators, our collaborators so excited about something, and then we deliver something and they are like, what? But this is not what you told me. Well, yeah, this is what you told you. Not really. So we have to be very careful on our excitement, what we do. And then finally, like I already said, we need to put the tools of development, the content, into the hands of the educators, okay? So let's do it right this time. So this is my vision into the future of education. I think we have an exciting future ahead of us, a lot of tools out there, a very rich landscape. So let's go do it. And that concludes my talk. Thank you. Are there any questions? So what's next from here? All right. Yeah, I'm trying to get yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Let me see if I can because for some reason, since I launched Zoom, my avatar is not working. Oh, there we go. Here I am. All right. Yeah, he's right behind me. There he is. Yeah. shrunk. Here, I'll get myself in between Mark and Laura. What about that? There we go. Oh, oops, wrong. All right, I lost the first couple of words. I kind of blanked out in there. Can you repeat it, Laura, please? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is probably, you're right, whoever asked this question, I think it's going to be a long, long, long time before we can tap this technology directly in our brains. You know, I'm one of those people that I think it will come. It will not come in my lifetime. I don't think it might even come in the lifetime of some of you in the audience in your 20s, but it might come. But I think, you know, it's pretty safe to say that in the next probably, you know, 20 years, 15 years or so, we are going to be evolving the visual and auditory techniques and technologies that we have today to bring you into virtual environments, plus all the other technologies. I mean, let's don't forget, I didn't talk about it, but let's don't forget, I mean, our being social animals that also include the sense of touch, the sense of smell, and all those kinds of things that, as we all know, there are very talented people out there working on these technologies today, but the challenges of those technologies are even bigger than the challenges of developing visual and auditory technology. But, you know, eventually, yeah, we might be all wired, but I don't think it's going to be on within the lifetime of any of us here in the audience. Now you might prove me wrong, you know, so you have me on record, so maybe 5 years from now you can all have a party and laugh at me. That's okay. Well, I mean, I will have to understand what you're trying to do, and you're more than welcome to email me privately, because the cave as it is right now is a more traditional, let's put it that way, VR is a system to create a completely digital space and bring you into that digital space. The way it is not designed to enhance reality, because it is a room. So it's kind of like the holodeck in a Star Trek, you know, you just, it's designed to take you somewhere else. But please feel free to send me an email and we can chat offline on what you have in mind. Yes, and especially, you know, like I mentioned earlier, COVID-19 has many of us to start think a little bit different on the way we were thinking up to 3 months ago, because again, I have gone through the experience of transition my own child from day to day going to the classroom to try to get him focused in our living room. So obviously, you know, we do need technologies where we can be just one of us focused on doing some particular work and project. And we also going to need technologies that allow us to be all as a group participating. So they are not exclusive. And again, in my talk today, I hope I made it clear, you know, I am not pushing for a cave. I am pushing for diversity of technologies to really know where each one of those technologies are needed or make sense. So yes, I mean, we need pretty much the whole spectrum of technologies. I'm Yeah, it's on my slide, but I'm typing it right there. It's very simple. It's Carolina UCF.edu. I just put it in there. Well, to me at this moment, to be honest with you, and please don't get upset at me. I just turned 55, so that allows me to be a little cranky. Okay, so to me, one of the biggest obstacles today in the younger groups that are coming into this technology is their complete lack of knowledge of what everybody and people like me have done in the last 30 years. I cannot tell you how many people are coming to me like, oh, I have this great idea. Oh, I'm going to change the world. And how many hearts I have broken saying, well, this was done in 1987. This was done again in 1993. This was done in 2004, and this was done in 2011, and this was done actually yesterday. You know, so to me right now is the you know, I think as a society we see the articles all over the place that is a very immediate information or it's just not information. And unfortunately, you want to be successful, especially on a field like this that is still emerging, is still evolving, you really have to sit and learn, read, find, investigate, and then base your fantastic idea on top of the foundations that have been done already. Because there is a ton of things that we can do. There is a ton of creativity. All of you guys out there have an imagination that has no limits, but sometimes that imagination gets cut short because you don't understand that some of the things you imagine have already been done. So your imagination has to take that to the next level. It's not that it's wrong. It's not that you don't know anything. It's just, you just have to be smart on your idea. So to me, that's the major limitation today. It's just they wanted to do everything very fast. It has to be done fast. It has to be right there. I had to put this product in the market tomorrow, and I have to do this, and I have to be the first one and the bigger one and the better and the this and the that and the that. And then on many cases it goes nowhere. So that's one big. And then some of the other things that I talked about that we see it from our perspective. And it's not us. You have to understand what a teacher in a classroom has to do. You have to understand what an instructor that is trying to teach some engineers how to operate a machinery has to go through in his or her normal day. So trying to get yourself in the position of others. So there is all these issues that I discussed that is really, you know, our limiting factor is this idea. Nobody else thought about this idea, and I'm going to put it first in the market. Well, there's probably about 3,000 people that had the same idea before you. So put it on the market, but understand why these 3,000 people before you were not successful. So how you can be successful, do it, but understand the failures. Make sense? I don't know. Well, that's a very good question. And again, I probably will have answered that question differently prior to COVID-19. But again, I have about 2.5 months of serving my fourth grader, trying to do his classwork at home. And it has been very challenging to keep him on focus, you know. So, so this controlling the focus of attention, I understand that there is a huge portion of learning that you want the students to explore and discover by themselves. I understand that, but at the same time, they are not going to explore and discover by themselves if they are, at this moment, for example, in my case, if instead of talking to you, I'm just going to go here and I'm going to look at this plant. So I'm right there. Well, you let me explore the space, but the point is not for me to focus on that plant because, yeah, that's part of the background bit. But what you want me is to focus on you and talk to you. So I think, a big challenge of VR in education at this moment is, both physically and virtually, how do we design those applications? How do we provide a technology that ensures that the students are paying attention to the things that they have to be paying attention to? And to me, that's a bigger challenge to do that in VR than it is in the classroom. Yes, assessments. On that one, you guys get me because I am not an educator like most of you are. I'm a research university professor. So I think, again, but from some of my collaborations with my colleagues in the College of Education, is, what are those metrics? And I think that's a brand new field on how do we assess learning in VR. That is a wide open field. I can briefly tell you, we did an NSF funded project many years ago that is spanned over a period of 5 years. So we started with 2 groups on their freshman year in the university, and we follow one group that were doing, let's say, the conventional going to class activities. And then we have another section that, in addition to the conventional classroom experience, they were having with us a virtual reality experience. And we follow them through their freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. So at the end of that, we did some metrics on that. And there were metrics related to retention of the information, being able to more accurately describe many of the concepts that they learned through their 4 years in college, their ability to extrapolate those concepts into other situations. And I have some papers with my colleagues published about this, and there was a statistically noticeable difference that those that had immersive VR had a much better retention. They had less confusion at the end of their education on many of the concepts and things like that. So that was a 5-year study, and it did show some very promising preliminary metrics to do the assessment, but that's not my field of research. Well, I think, all through our history, the different technologies that have started in the military then deploy into civilian life and bring a lot of benefits and a lot of innovation and progress. So I think right now, of course, the military is one of the perhaps heavier users of these technologies for many different types of training, from let's say physical training to strategic training to tactical training. So let's see, I'm trying to say what I can say without breaking a lot of my NDAs. So we have a lot of learning in that environment that can be transferred to civilians. So my let's say education experience has been more training than classroom type of education, but a lot of the things that I learned on training are translating very well into a more education environment. So it's a world that we should follow, and I know there are different perspectives on on military activities. All of us in this audience have different perspectives on that, but I think for people like me that I do research and I'm always trying to figure out what's the next thing, we have to focus on the positive. And there are many positives and very beneficial technologies that the military has helped us refine and translate into civilian life. Yeah, I can leave my connection open depending on what the conference dynamics and the schedule is. I can leave my chat open. All right, sounds good. So, all right. I don't know how to make my avatar to clap, but anyway, imagine me clapping. All right. Thank you. I'm jealous, Laura. I see you clapping. I don't know how to do that, but thank you. Thank you, Mark. The what? Okay, F4. Okay, let's see. We can do this. Look, yes, I learned how to do it. Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody. And I'll just follow you wherever we need to go. There we go.